I still remember the first time I saw her. The doll sat quietly on a chair in the corner of the apartment, dressed in a faded white dress with small blue flowers stitched along the hem. Her face was wide, her smile innocent, painted on like a harmless little toy. But her eyes, they were wrong. They didn't shine like glass or reflect the room's light. They seemed to sink in, dark and hollow, like the eyes of something that wasn't meant to be alive. It all started in 1970. Donna, a young nursing student, had received the doll as a birthday gift from her mother. It was second-hand, bought at a little antique shop. Back then, no one questioned the idea of buying a used toy, but some toys carry memories that should never be passed on. For the first few weeks, everything seemed fine. The doll was just another piece of decoration, sitting on the living room couch or propped up on Donna's bed. But then little things began to happen, things no one could explain. Donna would leave for her classes in the morning. She'd place the doll neatly on her bed, facing the wall. Yet when she returned in the evening, the doll had moved. At first she thought it was her roommate, Angie, playing a prank. Maybe Angie was bored, or just trying to freak her out. But when she asked, Angie shook her head. "I didn't touch it," Angie said one night, her voice trembling. "I don't even like looking at that thing." Donna laughed it off. A moving doll? Ridiculous. She tried to tell herself it was her imagination. Maybe she just forgot how she left it. Maybe she was tired. But the doll didn't stop moving. Sometimes it was sitting in the kitchen chair when Donna came home. Other times, its arms would be crossed when she clearly remembered leaving them at its sides. One morning she found it standing, yes, standing, leaning against the hallway wall. Then came the notes. Donna would come home to find tiny slips of parchment paper scattered across the apartment. The paper was rough, like the kind used in old notebooks. On each slip, there was a message written in what looked like a child's handwriting. "Help me. Save me." Sometimes it was just a name. Annabelle. There was one problem. Neither Donna nor Angie owned parchment paper. They didn't have markers or crayons either, and yet the notes kept appearing. By now, Angie was terrified. She begged Donna to get rid of the doll. Throw it out, burn it, anything. But Donna was stubborn. "It's just a doll," she kept saying. "It's not real." But what's real? The footsteps they heard in the middle of the night? The faint sound of fabric rustling in the dark hallway? What about the time Angie woke up and saw the doll? Sitting at the end of her bed, its head tilted, staring. She swore it hadn't been there when she went to sleep. The fear grew. One night, Lou, a close friend of Donna's, came over. Lou was tough, the kind of guy who didn't believe in ghosts or demons. He thought it was all just in their heads. "You girls need to stop watching horror movies," Lou laughed, picking up the doll. "It's just a piece of cloth and stuffing." But as soon as he touched it, something strange happened. Lou froze. The room felt colder, like the air had been sucked out. He set the doll down, suddenly pale. "I don't like this thing," he muttered. "There's something off about it." That night, Lou had a nightmare. In his dream, Lou was lying in bed when he saw Annabelle. She was at the foot of his bed, but this time she wasn't just a doll. Her face had changed, no longer stitched and painted but flesh-like with hollow black eyes. She climbed onto his chest, pinning him down. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then he felt something. Hands, cold and sharp like claws, wrap around his throat. He woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, but the nightmare didn't end when he opened his eyes. The next morning, Lou lifted his shirt to find 3 long scratches carved into his chest. They were deep, as if made by fingernails, but no one had touched him. "What the hell is this?" Lou demanded, his voice shaking. Donna and Angie were horrified. They didn't have an answer, but the doll sat in the corner, smiling. Always smiling. From that day on, the air in the apartment changed. It was heavy, suffocating, like something invisible was watching them, waiting. They started hearing whispers, faint, childlike whispers that seemed to come from the doll's direction. Sometimes the whispers turned into giggles. One evening, when Donna was alone, she swore she saw the doll's head turn, just slightly, following her as she walked past. Donna and Angie were terrified, but they still didn't know what to do. Was it haunted? Possessed? Could a doll even do something like that? They needed answers, and that's when they decided to call a medium. What if the doll wasn't just moving on its own? What if something inside it wanted to be seen? This was only the beginning. The medium arrived on a gray Sunday afternoon. Her name was Diane. She was in her 50s, with pale skin and eyes that looked like they'd seen too many dark things. She stepped into the apartment and froze. She hadn't even taken her shoes off before whispering, "Something's here." Donna and Angie exchanged a nervous glance. "It's this doll, isn't it?" Angie asked, pointing toward Annabelle, who sat in the corner like she always did. Diane nodded slowly. "Yes, that's where it's hiding." Diane knelt down in front of the doll. She didn't touch it. She wouldn't even get close. She just stared at its face like she was listening to something no one else could hear. After a long silence, she spoke. "This isn't just a doll. There's a spirit attached to it. She calls herself Annabelle, a little girl who died here long ago. She wants someone to care for her." Donna felt a strange pang of sympathy. A little girl? Lost and lonely? Diane continued, her voice low. "She says she likes you, Donna. She wants to stay with you. That's why she moves around. She's trying to be seen, to be loved." For a moment, Donna almost felt relieved. So it wasn't evil, right? Just a sad, trapped child. But Angie didn't look convinced. She crossed her arms, her eyes fixed on Annabelle. "Then why does it leave those creepy notes? Why does Lou have scratches on his chest?" Diane's face tightened. "Sometimes spirits don't understand boundaries. Sometimes they reach out in ways we don't expect." That night, Donna made a decision that would change everything. She told Angie they wouldn't get rid of the doll. "She just wants love," Donna insisted. "We can't throw her away. That would be cruel." Angie stared at her like she'd gone insane. "Cruel? Donna, it's not a child. It's not even alive." But Donna wouldn't listen. She placed Annabelle on her bed, smoothing down the doll's dress, almost like she was tucking a child in for the night. The following days were worse. The notes didn't stop. More and more of them appeared, scrawled in that same childlike handwriting. Some messages were darker now. "Don't go," one said. Another read, "I'll find you." And then, one night, Donna woke to something that froze her blood. She was lying in bed when she felt a pressure on her chest. Her eyes snapped open, and there it was. Annabelle, sitting on her, its face inches from hers. She screamed and threw it across the room. The doll hit the wall with a dull thud, but when Donna turned on the light, it was sitting upright in the corner, head tilted, as if nothing had happened. The next morning, Donna called Lou. "You have to come over. Something's wrong," she said, her voice trembling. Lou agreed. He had his own reasons for hating that doll. That evening, Lou sat at the kitchen table with Donna and Angie. "We need to get rid of it," he said firmly. "I don't care what the medium said. That thing is not a little girl. It's something else." Angie nodded in agreement. "I think he's right. Every time it moves, every time we hear those whispers, I feel like it's playing with us. Like it wants us scared." Donna bit her lip. She didn't want to believe it. But that night, something happened that left no doubt. Lou was asleep on the couch when he felt it again. That same crushing weight on his chest. He opened his eyes and saw Annabelle climbing toward him. This time her painted smile looked twisted. He couldn't move. His arms and legs were frozen, pinned down by something unseen. He gasped for air, but a cold, invisible hand squeezed his throat. When Lou finally broke free, he stumbled backward, clutching his neck. "Enough!" he shouted, his voice hoarse. "That's not a little girl. That's a demon." The room was dead silent. The only sound was Lou's ragged breathing. Donna and Angie stared at the doll, which sat motionless on the chair, smiling that same sweet smile. The next day, Lou demanded they call someone who truly understood these things. Not just a medium, not just anyone. They needed experts. That's when they found the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed and Lorraine Warren walked into Donna's apartment on a bright, ordinary morning. But there was nothing ordinary about what they felt. Lorraine paused at the doorway, her gaze falling on Annabelle. The doll sat on a chair, legs dangling, with that sweet, stitched smile. Lorraine shivered. "There's something wrong with this room," she whispered to Ed. Donna tried to stay calm as she explained everything. How Annabelle moved, the notes, the scratches on Lou's chest, the nights filled with whispers. Ed listened carefully, his eyes darkening with every detail. Lorraine just kept staring at the doll. Finally, Lorraine said, "This is not the spirit of a child. This is something much, much worse." Donna blinked. "But the medium said—" Lorraine shook her head sharply. "Whatever is attached to that doll lied. Spirits of children don't linger like this. What's inside Annabelle is not human. It never was." Ed added, "It's a demonic entity. It's pretending to be innocent so it can stay close to you. It wants to be invited in. That's how it gains power." The room went silent. Donna felt a chill run through her veins. "Invited in?" she asked. Lorraine nodded. "Every time you talk to it. Every time you treat it like a real child. You're giving it permission. And now, it's growing stronger." Lou slammed his hand on the table. I told you this thing wasn't some lost little girl. We need to burn it, now." Ed held up a hand. "No, burning it won't work. You'll just release what's inside. It'll find something else to attach to, and you won't be able to stop it." Angie swallowed hard. "Then what do we do?" Lorraine's gaze never left the doll. "We'll cleanse this place. But Annabelle, she needs to come with us." That night, they began the ritual. Lorraine set holy water on the table. Ed read prayers, his voice steady and commanding. Donna, Angie, and Lou stood in the corner, watching as the room seemed to grow colder. The air became heavy, almost suffocating. And then, the doll moved. It didn't fall or shift by accident. It turned its head, slowly, toward Lorraine. "Did you see that?" Donna whispered. Lou cursed under his breath. Ed didn't stop praying. His voice grew louder, filling the room. Suddenly, a deep guttural sound echoed from somewhere unseen. Not from the doll's mouth, but from the walls themselves. It was like a growl. Low. Angry. Donna grabbed Angie's hand. "What is that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Lorraine's face was pale. "It's showing itself. It's angry we're here." The lights flickered. The table shook. And then Annabelle toppled forward onto the floor, face down. For a moment, everyone froze. Ed took a careful step toward it. And then, the doll slid, all by itself. It scraped across the wooden floor, stopping just inches from Ed's feet. He didn't flinch. He picked it up with gloved hands, holding it like it might bite. Lorraine whispered, "We need to leave. Now." Donna felt both terrified and relieved as the Warrens carried Annabelle out. But Lou wasn't done with it. He stepped outside, following them to their car. "What are you going to do with it?" he asked. Ed turned, his expression serious. "We're taking it back to our home. It will be locked in a blessed case. It can't hurt anyone there." Lou hesitated. "And if it tries?" Ed's eyes narrowed. "Then we deal with it. We've done this before." As they drove away, Donna watched from the window. For the first time in weeks, her apartment felt lighter. The silence was almost comforting. But deep down, a part of her wondered, was it really over? It wasn't, because Annabelle wasn't finished. Not even close. The Warrens left Donna's apartment just before nightfall. Ed carried Annabelle wrapped in a brown canvas sack, tied tightly with rope. He didn't want the doll's eyes visible. Lorraine sat beside him, silent and tense, clutching her rosary like a lifeline. Their car, a black Chevrolet, sat waiting at the curb. It looked ordinary, but the air around it felt thick, like static before a lightning strike. Lorraine slid into the passenger seat. Ed placed Annabelle in the back, locking the doors and double-checking the sack. He gave a nod to Lorraine before starting the engine. The first few miles were quiet. The roads stretched empty, flanked by fields of tall grass swaying under the cold moonlight. Ed kept his hands firm on the wheel, his jaw tight. Lorraine broke the silence. "Do you feel it?" "Yes," Ed said. "It's not happy we took it. I can feel the anger." At first the signs were small. The radio sputtered with static, then switched itself on, blaring some old tune that hadn't played in decades. Lorraine quickly reached over and turned the knob, but the song kept playing. Finally, Ed yanked the radio fuse out. The silence that followed was worse. Lorraine glanced behind her. The canvas sack was moving. She froze. "Ed? It's shifting." Ed's knuckles turned white as he gripped the wheel. "Don't look at it. Don't acknowledge it. That's what it wants." Minutes later, the temperature in the car plummeted. Their breath turned to mist. Ed muttered a quick prayer under his breath, and Lorraine joined him, whispering sacred words as the dark road stretched on endlessly. Then, the steering wheel jerked. Hard. Ed nearly lost control. What the hell? He wrestled the wheel, but it was as if something invisible had seized it, pulling them toward the edge of the road. Lorraine grabbed his arm. "It's trying to kill us. Pray, Ed. Now." He slammed his foot on the brake. The car screeched, tires burning rubber as it swerved to a stop just inches from a ditch. The smell of smoke filled the air. Lorraine turned around. The canvas sack was standing upright in the back seat. Standing. She couldn't breathe. "Ed, it's moving again." Ed reached into his jacket and pulled out a small vial of holy water. He didn't hesitate. He splashed it directly onto the sack. A hiss filled the car. Not from the doll, but from the air itself. It sounded like something alive was screaming. For a few moments, everything went still. Ed started the car again, his voice trembling as he continued his prayers. Lorraine didn't take her eyes off the sack. Every now and then, the fabric shifted like something inside was crawling. By the time they reached a gas station, they were both pale and shaking. Ed parked under the flickering light. "I need a minute," he said, rubbing his hands over his face. Lorraine nodded. "Don't leave me alone with it." He went inside the station to get coffee. Lorraine stayed in the car, her eyes locked on the sack. That's when she heard it. A whisper. Her name. Lorraine. Her heart stopped. It came again, soft and sweet, like a child calling for its mother. "Lorraine." She clutched her rosary tighter. "You're not a child. You're not Annabelle." The whisper turned into a laugh, a soft giggle that made her skin crawl. When Ed returned, she looked pale. "We have to keep going," she said. "The sooner we get it to the museum, the better." Ed nodded, starting the car again. No more stops. No more talking to it. The next hour was worse. Shadows crossed the road where no trees stood. The car's headlights dimmed, then flared so bright that Ed nearly swerved again. At one point, Lorraine swore she saw something in the rearview mirror, two black eyes staring at her through the fabric of the sack. "Don't look," Ed said, as if sensing her thoughts. "Don't feed it fear." But the truth was, even he was terrified. When they finally reached their home, the clock struck midnight. The moment Ed stepped out of the car with the sack, the wind howled, like something screaming in fury. Lorraine unlocked the back door, her hands trembling. They brought Annabelle into their basement where all the other cursed objects were kept. Ed placed the sack on a wooden table, slowly unwrapping the rope. The doll's face stared up at them, calm and blank, as if none of the night's horrors had happened. Lorraine shivered. "It's almost like it's mocking us." Ed picked it up and placed it inside a glass case. He made sure the locks were tight. Then they both stepped back. For a long moment, they just stared at it, waiting. The doll's head tilted slightly to the left. Neither of them had touched it. That night, neither Ed nor Lorraine slept. Even with the doll locked away, the house felt colder, heavier. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps. Every shadow looked like it might move. And deep in the basement, behind the glass, Annabelle waited, her black button eyes reflecting just enough light to look alive. The Warrens' house was never truly quiet again. Even with Annabelle locked behind glass in their artifact room, a place filled with cursed objects, demonic relics, and haunted trinkets, the air in the house felt heavier. Ed and Lorraine knew from experience that evil doesn't simply disappear when contained. It waits. And Annabelle was patient. The first signs were small. Lorraine began hearing faint footsteps in the basement late at night, even when the lights were off and every door was locked. Sometimes the footsteps would stop right beneath their bedroom floor, as if the doll was listening. Ed didn't sleep well either. He would wake up around 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, feeling as though someone was standing in the hallway watching him breathe. One morning, Lorraine went downstairs to check on the glass case. The doll was no longer sitting upright. It was leaning to one side, its face pressed against the glass as though it had been trying to peek out. "Ed," Lorraine called, her voice sharp. "Did you move it?" Ed came down the stairs, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "I haven't touched that thing since last night." Lorraine stepped closer, studying the case. The locks were still secure, the seals unbroken. But Annabelle's tiny hand was now raised, almost as if it were pointing at her. "It's taunting us," Ed muttered. Lorraine crossed herself and whispered, "No, it's trying to warn us, or maybe lure us closer." A few days later, the real trouble began. A young man named Mark, a motorcycle enthusiast and friend of the Warrens' assistant, came to the house. He had heard rumors about the infamous doll and wanted to see it for himself. "I don't get it," Mark said with a smirk as he stepped into the basement. "It's just a doll. People get scared over this thing?" "Really?" Lorraine's tone was firm. "Mark, don't underestimate it. It's not just a doll. It's a conduit for something evil. We've seen what it can do." Ed added, "Don't touch the case. Don't mock it. Just respect it." But Mark laughed. "Respect? It's a stuffed toy, Ed. What's it going to do, glare at me?" As if in response, the lights flickered. Lorraine stiffened. "Don't joke. I'm serious. That's not something you want to provoke." Mark ignored her, stepping closer to the glass. "If you're so scary, why don't you do something?" he said, tapping on the case with his knuckle. The sound echoed like a crack in the silence. Lorraine felt the temperature drop instantly. Her breath misted in the air. "Ed," she whispered, "it's happening again." Ed pulled Mark back. "Enough! Get upstairs, now!" But Mark laughed it off and walked toward the stairs. "I'll be fine. It's just a creepy doll." What happened next silenced everyone. Mark reached the top step and froze. His face turned white. "Mark, what is it?" Lorraine called. "There's someone standing in the hall," he whispered. Ed looked up. There's no one there. Let's go." But Mark didn't move. Suddenly he grabbed his throat. "It's choking me," he gasped, clawing at his neck, his body bent backward as if invisible hands were dragging him down. Lorraine rushed up the stairs, clutching her rosary, chanting prayers in a trembling voice. "Ed, holy water, now!" Ed threw open a small vial and flung drops up the stairs. The moment the water splashed, Mark fell forward, coughing violently. The air filled with the sound of a high-pitched giggle. It wasn't coming from Mark. It came from the basement, from the glass case. Annabelle's head was tilted back, her mouth open as if frozen mid-laugh. Lorraine felt sick. Mark stumbled to his feet. "I'm leaving," he croaked, his voice raw from choking. He didn't even wait to grab his jacket. He bolted out of the house and sped away on his motorcycle. Later that night, the phone rang. It was the police. Mark had crashed his motorcycle on the old Route 32, less than a mile from the Warrens' home. Witnesses said he had been speeding, but his girlfriend, who had been riding with him, swore Mark had screamed that something was grabbing him moments before he lost control. He died on the scene. Lorraine dropped the phone. She stared at Ed with wide, terrified eyes. "It's Annabelle. It has to be. She didn't like that he mocked her." Ed clenched his fists. "We have to seal that thing properly. What we did isn't enough." That night, Ed called a priest to bless the house again. Father Cook, a trusted ally, arrived with holy water and relics. He was experienced, but when he approached the glass case, even he stopped and swallowed hard. "I've seen many cursed things in my time," Father Cook said softly, "but this doll, it's different. There's something far darker attached to it." They performed a blessing, but during the prayers, the lights in the basement flickered wildly. The glass case trembled, as though something inside was pushing against it. And then came the voice, a soft whisper. "I warned you." Everyone froze. "Ed, did you hear that?" Lorraine's voice shook. "Yes," he said, holding the crucifix higher. "Keep praying, Father. Don't stop." The blessing took hours, but finally the air seemed to lighten. The case stopped shaking. The whispers faded. But Lorraine knew it wasn't over. She could feel the doll's gaze even through the glass. Later, when they went upstairs, Lorraine sat at the kitchen table, her face pale. "She killed that boy," she said quietly. "I can feel it." Ed sighed. "The boy mocked her. It's like he gave it permission to harm him. But we can't let that thing run free. We have to keep it locked here, no matter what." From that night on, the basement was off limits to visitors. Ed reinforced the glass case with extra seals, prayers, and protective symbols. But Lorraine still woke up at 3 a.m. every night, feeling something cold brushing against her skin. Sometimes she swore she heard footsteps upstairs when they were both in bed. The worst came when Lorraine had a dream. She was standing in the basement facing the glass case. Annabelle's eyes weren't black buttons anymore. They were human, glowing, alive. The doll smiled, and then it whispered her name. Lorraine woke up screaming. When Ed rushed into the room, she grabbed his arm. "We have to do something. If we leave it here, it will keep feeding on people. It wants more." Ed stared at her. "More of what?" Lorraine whispered. "More souls." The Warrens began to consider building a permanent secure display for Annabelle, one that would prevent it from ever escaping again. But deep down, Lorraine knew. The glass would never be enough. The house was never truly dark anymore. Even when every light was switched off, there was a glow in the corners, a strange, unsettling hue that seemed to bleed from the artifact room. Lorraine felt it first. At night, while lying awake, she could see the faintest shimmer under the basement door, like candlelight flickering even though no candles were lit. Ed noticed it too, but he said nothing at first. He didn't want to admit that the seals might be failing. On the third night after Mark's tragic death, everything escalated. Lorraine was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of tea, her rosary beads wrapped tight around her hand. The house was still, but she felt it, that thick, suffocating weight pressing down as if someone was standing directly behind her. She didn't dare turn around. Then she heard it. A knock. It came from the basement door. Not just once, but 3 times. Slow, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. Lorraine's breath caught. She set the teacup down, the sound of porcelain against wood echoing too loudly in the silence. "Ed," she whispered. Her husband came rushing in, his face tense. "What is it?" She pointed at the basement door. "It knocked. I heard it." Ed didn't hesitate. He reached for his crucifix and a vial of holy water. "Stay here." "Ed, wait," she pleaded. "Don't open it. It's—" But before she could finish, the door rattled violently, as though someone, or something, was kicking it from the other side. The teacup shattered on the floor. Lorraine backed away, her lips moving in prayer. Ed took a deep breath and opened the door. The basement was pitch black. The light switch didn't work. "Stay behind me," Ed whispered. He stepped down the stairs, each creak of wood sounding like it would snap under his weight. Lorraine followed, clutching her rosary tight, her heart pounding against her ribs. When they reached the bottom, they both froze. The glass case was empty. Annabelle was gone. "Ed," Lorraine's voice cracked. "Where is she?" Ed scanned the room, his hand trembling as he raised the crucifix. "It's here. Somewhere close." A scraping sound came from the far corner. They turned to see the doll, standing upright, its tiny feet shuffling across the concrete floor as if something invisible was pulling the strings. Lorraine's knees nearly gave out. "It's moving by itself." Ed stepped forward. "In the name of God, I command you to stop." The doll froze. Then its head twisted, not slowly, but with a sharp snap, until it was facing them. "Lorraine." The whisper came again. But this time, it wasn't in her head. It filled the entire basement, echoing off the walls. Lorraine clutched her rosary and began reciting prayers aloud. Her voice shook, but she forced herself to keep going. The doll twitched once, then again, and then it lunged. It didn't run, but it moved across the room with impossible speed, slamming into the wall next to them. Lorraine screamed, Ed splashed holy water across the floor, and the doll fell limp, crumpling as though whatever force animated it had been burned away. "Get the case," Ed barked. Lorraine scrambled to grab the reinforced glass display. Together they shoved Annabelle inside, locking it with every mechanism they had prepared: metal clasps, a chain, a crucifix nailed to the front. But even inside the case, the doll wasn't still. Its head slowly turned, pressing its face against the glass. A smile formed on its lips. "That's impossible," Lorraine whispered. "It's not even stitched that way." Ed didn't respond. He just tightened the locks. The rest of that night was a blur of prayers and holy water. Father Cook came back at dawn to bless the entire house again, but even he admitted that something about Annabelle was changing. "It's growing stronger," the priest said. "Every time someone challenges it, mocks it, or even acknowledges it, it feeds on that energy. It's not a spirit of a little girl. It never was. This is a demon, and it's learning." Lorraine's dreams grew worse. She would wake up every night at 3 a.m., the so-called witching hour, covered in sweat, feeling Annabelle's eyes watching her through the walls. Sometimes she swore she could hear small footsteps on the stairs. Sometimes the doorknob to their bedroom would rattle. But when Ed checked, no one was there. A week later, they received a visitor who nearly died because of the doll. It was a young woman named Lisa, who had come to the Warren seeking help for strange occurrences in her own home. She was polite, curious, but also skeptical. I don't believe a doll can be dangerous, Lisa said with a nervous laugh. It's just hard to imagine something like that having power. Lorraine warned her. Do not go near the case. Don't even look at it too long. Some things are better left alone. But Lisa didn't listen. She walked right up to Annabelle's glass prison, staring at its black eyes. Is this really the doll that everyone talks about? She asked. The lights flickered. Lorraine's breath caught. Step back. Now. Lisa smirked almost mockingly. What's it going to do? Stare me to death? And then the glass cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but enough to make everyone freeze. Lisa's smile vanished. The next moment, she felt something grab her wrist, cold and sharp like nails digging into her skin. She screamed. Ed ran forward, yanking her back while Lorraine doused the glass with holy water. Lisa's wrist bore red marks, like small hands had been gripping her. We told you not to mock it, Ed shouted. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Lisa left the house in tears, but the damage had been done. That night, the case rattled violently. Lorraine swore she could hear faint scratching on the inside, like claws dragging across the glass. The Warrens decided it was time. Annabelle needed a permanent, sacred confinement. Something stronger than anything they had built before. We'll have to bless the entire basement and reinforce the case, Ed said, his face pale. If this thing ever gets out again, I don't know if we can stop it. Lorraine stared at the doll, her voice barely above a whisper. It doesn't just want to escape, Ed. It wants us. It's waiting for the moment we let our guard down. That night, while Ed worked in the basement sealing protective sigils on the walls, Lorraine prayed in the living room. Halfway through the prayer, she heard it again. Lorraine. Her name, whispered from just inches behind her. She spun around. No one was there, but the doll's case, 2 rooms away, was shaking violently. She knew this wasn't over. The Warrens' home was supposed to be a fortress. Every artifact in the basement had been bound, blessed, and sealed to ensure that the evil they carried could never escape. But as Ed and Lorraine were beginning to learn, Annabelle wasn't like the others. She wasn't just contained evil, she was clever. She was waiting, and she was reaching beyond the glass. It began with the phone calls. Late at night, the Warrens' house phone would ring. When Ed answered, there would be only silence on the other end. Silence, and then a faint giggle. Lorraine picked up once, her hand trembling as she pressed the receiver to her ear. Hello? At first there was nothing. Then, Lorraine. A voice, soft, mocking, and distant. It was a child's voice. Lorraine slammed the phone down so hard the table rattled. It's her, she whispered to Ed. She's finding a way to reach us. But the calls were only the beginning. Objects began moving around the house. A framed photograph of Ed and Lorraine's wedding day crashed to the floor one evening, shattering into pieces. Lorraine found the photo face down, the glass fractured across Ed's face. That night, while they were trying to sleep, the sound of something small dragging across the hallway floor kept them awake. It sounded like fabric, like Annabelle's dress being pulled along the wood. I locked that case, Ed muttered, grabbing a flashlight and heading downstairs. It's not possible. But when they checked the basement, the doll was still inside her glass prison, sitting exactly where they had left her. Except her head was tilted slightly more than before, as if she had been listening. The next day, Lorraine received a visit from Judy, their teenage daughter. Judy rarely stayed in the house anymore. She was afraid of the things her parents kept in the basement, but this time she came with a warning. Mom, Judy said, clutching her mother's arm. Last night, I heard a voice outside my window. Lorraine froze. What did it say? Judy's lips trembled. It whispered my name, over and over, like it wanted me to come outside. Ed and Lorraine exchanged a look of pure terror. "She's trying to leave the house," Lorraine whispered. "Ed, we can't keep her here. She's growing stronger." Ed shook his head. "If we take her out, she'll only wreak havoc somewhere else. We have to strengthen the seal." That evening, they called in 2 priests for reinforcement, Father Cook and Father Gordon. Both had worked with the Warrens before, but neither had seen anything like Annabelle. When they approached the artifact room, the temperature dropped instantly. Father Cook rubbed his arms. "It's like stepping into a tomb." Father Gordon nodded, staring at the doll's glass case. "She knows we're here. She doesn't want us touching her." They began the blessing ritual, but almost immediately things went wrong. The lights flickered violently. A deep rumbling echoed from the basement floor, as if something was pounding from below. Lorraine clutched her rosary. "Keep praying! Don't stop!" Suddenly, the glass case rattled so violently it looked like it might shatter. And then, for the first time, the doll moved in plain sight. She lifted her head, she tilted it back, and in a voice that was both a whisper and a scream, she said, "Leave me alone." Everyone froze. Even the priests were shaken. Father Gordon's voice cracked as he continued the prayers, but he didn't stop. Lorraine, pale as death, whispered to Ed, "It's not just a doll anymore. It's a vessel. Something's inside it, and it's fighting back." After hours of intense prayers and holy rites, the basement finally fell silent. The priests were exhausted, drenched in sweat. "She's restrained for now," Father Cook said. "But I can't promise she won't grow stronger again. Whatever is attached to that doll is ancient. It's cunning, and it hates you both." That night, Lorraine had another dream. She was standing in the hallway outside Judy's room. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, she saw Annabelle, not the doll, but a little girl in a white dress, sitting on the bed. The girl smiled sweetly. "Can I stay with you?" she asked. Lorraine tried to speak, but her voice was gone. The girl tilted her head. Her smile twisted. "Or should I stay with Judy instead?" The girl's face melted, twisting into something dark and hollow. Her eyes turned black. Lorraine woke up screaming. Ed rushed to her side. "It's the doll again, isn't it?" Lorraine nodded, tears in her eyes. "It's going after Judy. I can feel it. It wants to trick her, to make her open herself to it." The next morning, Lorraine called Judy, insisting she stay with relatives for the next few weeks. She couldn't risk Annabelle's presence reaching their daughter. But Lorraine knew it was only a matter of time before the demon tried again. One evening, while Ed was in the garage, Lorraine went downstairs to check the case. She found something that made her blood run cold. On the inside of the glass, written in what looked like condensation, were the words, "Let me out." Lorraine backed away, clutching her chest. She didn't remember the basement being cold enough to fog the glass, and the doll wasn't even breathing. How could there be condensation? She didn't need to ask. She knew. The demon wasn't just contained anymore. It was negotiating. It was waiting for someone foolish enough to open the case. By the time autumn rolled into Connecticut, the Warrens' home no longer felt like a safe place. The air was heavy. Even during the day, there was a strange, unnatural stillness that made every creak of the floorboard sound like footsteps. Lorraine knew it wasn't just her imagination. Annabelle's presence was spreading. The first sign came when a group of college students stopped by to visit the artifact room. It wasn't unusual for people to seek out the Warrens, curious about their infamous collection. But this group, they were reckless. They laughed, they pointed, and they treated the museum like a sideshow attraction. "Which one's the demon doll?" a young man joked, smirking at the glass case. Lorraine's warning was sharp. "Do not mock her. Do not touch the glass. I'm serious." But of course he didn't listen. With a grin, he tapped the glass once, twice, and on the third tap, the lights in the basement blew out. A scream came from one of the girls. The basement plunged into complete darkness. Then, from somewhere near the case, a sound rose, a scraping noise, like nails dragging across wood. Ed scrambled for his flashlight, but before he could turn it on, the young man stumbled back, clutching his throat. "There's something—" He choked, gasping as if invisible hands were tightening around his neck. "Get him upstairs, now!" Ed barked. Lorraine grabbed the girl's arm, dragging her toward the stairs as Ed doused the floor with holy water. By the time they reached the kitchen, the young man collapsed, coughing and trembling. His neck bore red marks, long, thin scratches, as though someone had clawed him. "This is no joke," Ed growled. "You're lucky you're walking out of here alive. She doesn't forgive mockery." The group left in silence, their faces pale. But later that night, Lorraine learned that the boy had crashed his motorcycle on the way home. Witnesses claimed they heard him screaming before the accident, swerving violently for no reason. He survived, barely. Lorraine sat in the living room, rosary beads in her hand, whispering prayers. "She's growing stronger," she said softly. "Even a single touch on that glass, it gives her a chance." But Annabelle's influence wasn't limited to those who mocked her. It began touching the lives of those who simply came too close. The mailman, who had been delivering letters to the Warrens' house for years, refused to step foot on their property after he claimed to hear a little girl laughing near the porch, when no one was there. Then there was the neighbor. Mrs. Hawthorne, an elderly woman who lived next door, came by one afternoon looking pale and shaken. "Lorraine," she whispered, "I don't know how to say this, but last night I saw something in my yard. A small girl, standing under the tree. She was staring at my window, and her eyes, they weren't human." Lorraine's stomach twisted. She knew that description all too well. It wasn't a little girl. It was the thing inside Annabelle. That night, Ed reinforced the basement door with iron locks and sacred seals. But the activity didn't stop. The Warrens began hearing noises in the walls, scratches, faint footsteps, and sometimes giggles. Lorraine would wake in the middle of the night to find the crucifixes in their bedroom turned upside down. On the third night of constant disturbances, Lorraine decided to face the artifact room alone. She wrapped herself in prayer, holding a Bible in one hand and a vial of holy water in the other. Ed begged her not to go, but she knew she had to. The basement felt colder than ever. Each step she took down the wooden stairs echoed like someone, or something, was following right behind her. When she reached the bottom, she stopped. The glass case wasn't where it should be. It had moved. Not far, just a few inches, but enough to send a chill through her bones. Lorraine whispered a prayer. "In the name of God, I bind you where you are. You have no power here." The air grew heavy, and then she heard it. Lorraine. Her name whispered directly into her ear. She spun around, heart pounding. No one was there. When she turned back to the case, she froze. The doll's head had tilted to one side, pressing against the glass as though it were listening. And then, impossibly, its lips moved. "Let me out?" Lorraine staggered back, nearly dropping the Bible. Her breath came fast, her body trembling. She poured holy water across the floor, chanting prayers louder, faster. The case rattled violently, but eventually it stilled. That night, Lorraine told Ed, "We need to consider moving her. Maybe a church. Maybe somewhere even more secure. I can't have her here. I can't—" Before she could finish, a loud crash came from upstairs. They ran to the second floor, and what they saw made their blood run cold. Judy's bedroom door, locked since she had left for safety, was wide open. And on the bed, sitting upright, was Annabelle. "Ed?" Lorraine's voice was barely a whisper. "She's not confined to the basement anymore." Ed didn't waste a second. He grabbed the doll, forcing it back into its case, and began sealing it with new blessings. But the fear remained. If Annabelle could move around the house, what was stopping her from walking right out the front door? The nights after the bedroom incident felt longer than ever. Ed and Lorraine could no longer pretend that Annabelle's presence was contained. She was no longer just a cursed object. She was becoming a force, a living, breathing malice that wanted freedom. Lorraine barely slept. Every creak in the floor, every whisper of wind outside the window made her heart race. And then, one night, it escalated. It started with the smell. A sharp, metallic scent like rust or blood filled the house. Lorraine woke from a restless sleep, clutching her chest. "Ed," she whispered, shaking him. "Do you smell that?" Ed sat up, eyes groggy but alert. He sniffed the air, his face hardening. "She's active tonight," he said. "Stay here. I'll check the basement." But Lorraine couldn't stay behind. They both crept down the stairs, flashlights in hand. The house was silent, unnervingly so. As they reached the basement door, they noticed something horrifying. The iron locks Ed had placed were unlatched. All of them. "No," Lorraine's voice trembled. "I locked these. I swear I locked them." Ed's jaw tightened. "She's testing us. Stay close to me." When they entered the basement, their flashlights flickered, barely holding their beams. And then, as the light cut through the shadows, Lorraine froze. The case. Empty. Annabelle was gone. Lorraine's breathing quickened. "No. No. 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 Ed, she's out. She's—" A sound cut her off. Footsteps. Small, slow, deliberate footsteps on the floor above them. "She's upstairs," Ed said, grabbing his cross. "We have to find her before she—" Before he could finish, the lights in the entire house went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Lorraine reached for Ed's hand, gripping it tight. They made their way back upstairs, their flashlights shaking as they scanned the hallway. Then, from Judy's room came the sound of a music box playing, soft, creepy, out of place. Ed's voice was low. "We don't own a music box." Lorraine felt her stomach twist. "It's her." When they pushed open Judy's door, the flashlight beam landed on something that made Lorraine's knees buckle. Annabelle was sitting in the middle of the bed. But she wasn't alone. Around her, arranged in a perfect circle, were all of Judy's dolls. Their heads were turned, their painted eyes fixed directly at the Warrens as if they had been waiting. And the music box? It sat in Annabelle's lap, its lid creaking open and closed on its own. Ed raised the cross. "In the name of God, I command you." Before he could finish, the door slammed shut behind them. The sound was deafening, like a shotgun blast. The lights flickered back on, but the room was different. The walls seemed to breathe. The dolls' heads turned slowly, one by one, toward Lorraine. "Ed," she whispered. "It's not just Annabelle. There's something else here." The air grew freezing cold. And then Annabelle's head tilted, too fast, too sharp, as if she had just snapped her neck. A voice filled the room. Not from the doll's mouth. Not from anywhere. It was everywhere at once. "She is mine." Lorraine staggered back, clutching her rosary. "You can't have her. Leave this place." But the entity didn't listen. The bed shook violently, the dolls clattering to the floor. The music box slammed shut with a crack. Ed moved forward, splashing holy water across the bed. The reaction was instant. Annabelle flew backward, slamming into the wall with unnatural force. The voice screamed, high-pitched and furious. The glass in the window cracked. "Get out!" Ed and Lorraine shouted prayers, their voices cutting through the chaos. Slowly, painfully, the energy in the room began to weaken. Annabelle slid to the floor, motionless. The house fell silent. Ed didn't hesitate. He grabbed the doll, wrapping it in a heavy cloth soaked in holy water. We're taking her out of here. She's not staying in this house another night." Lorraine nodded, tears running down her face. "Where?" "Somewhere she can't touch Judy. Somewhere she can't reach us." They locked the artifact room that night, but it didn't matter. As they carried Annabelle's wrapped body down the hallway, Lorraine swore she heard something. A faint whisper. "I'll find you." The Warrens knew they couldn't simply hide Annabelle. She needed to be contained, permanently. The events in Judy's room had made that crystal clear. Lorraine, still shaken, stared at the doll wrapped in the soaked cloth. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "If we don't end this, she'll destroy us. She'll take Judy." Ed's face was pale, but his eyes were hard. "We're going to end this. Tonight." They prepared the ritual in the artifact room, the only place fortified enough to hold what they were about to face. The room was dimly lit by candles. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and curling like something alive. Holy water, crucifixes, and sacred relics lined the table where Annabelle sat, still wrapped tightly. But not still. Every so often the cloth shifted, almost like she was breathing. Lorraine couldn't take her eyes off her. "She knows what we're planning," she said softly. Ed nodded. "Good. Let her know. Let her fight. Because tonight, we fight back." The ritual begins. Ed opened the Bible, his voice steady but heavy with tension. "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." Lorraine sprinkled holy water on the cloth, each drop sizzling as if it burned. Suddenly, a deep vibration filled the room. The lights flickered. The doll's body shifted inside the cloth, violently this time as if trying to break free. A guttural laugh echoed through the room. Not a human laugh. Not a child's. Something in between. Something wrong. "You think you can stop me?" the voice hissed, rattling the glass cases of other cursed objects. Lorraine clenched her rosary, whispering prayers under her breath. "Ed, it's stronger than before the room comes alive." One by one, the objects in the artifact room began to move. The rocking chair rocked on its own. A music box started playing its eerie tune, and from the shadows a figure appeared. Not Annabelle. Something darker. It stood in the corner, tall and twisted, its face hidden under a black veil. The air grew ice cold, and the candles dimmed. Lorraine gasped. "It's not just the doll. She's a vessel. This is what's inside her." "Leave this place." The voice was deafening now, shaking the floor. The cloth covering Annabelle tore open, and the doll's cracked face stared at them. Her painted eyes seemed alive, glinting with malice, the battle of wills. Ed raised the cross. "You do not belong here. In the name of Christ I command you." Before he could finish, the cross ripped from his hand and flew across the room. The entity moved closer, its form shifting like smoke and flesh combined. Lorraine cried out, "Ed, it's targeting you. Don't look at it." But Ed's eyes locked with the shadowed face, and for a moment he froze. He saw visions, terrible visions of his family, Judy screaming, Lorraine drowning in darkness, the doll smiling in their burning home. "No!" Ed roared, breaking free of the trance. He grabbed the cross again, this time holding it with both hands, his knuckles white. The turning point. Lorraine joined him, standing shoulder to shoulder. "We are not afraid of you," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "You cannot have our daughter. You cannot have us." She began reciting the prayer of St. Michael, her voice growing louder with each word. Ed joined in. The entity screamed. The windows shattered. Annabelle's head twisted unnaturally, her mouth opening wide as if she were the one screaming. The room became a storm, papers flying, glass breaking, furniture sliding across the floor. But the Warrens kept praying, refusing to stop. And then, for the first time, Lorraine felt it. The energy was shifting, weakening. She pressed forward, holding her rosary like a weapon. "Leave this doll. Leave this place. You have no power here." The shadow figure shrieked, its form splintering like smoke and wind. With one final burst of strength, Ed doused Annabelle with holy water and slammed the cross down on her chest. The scream that followed was unlike anything they had heard. 1,000 voices crying in rage and pain. And then, silence. The aftermath. The candles flickered back to life. The air was still, but the room was wrecked. Glass everywhere. Objects knocked over. Annabelle lay motionless, her once menacing eyes now dull. Lorraine fell to her knees, sobbing in relief. "Is it over?" Ed looked at the doll, his expression grim. "Not over. Contained. But she'll never be gone." They placed Annabelle in a specially built case, one blessed by priests and sealed with layers of protection. On the glass, they etched a warning. "Do not touch. Do not open. Ever." The final whisper. As they locked the artifact room for the night, Lorraine heard it again. A faint whisper, so soft she almost thought she imagined it. "Lorraine." She froze. Ed touched her shoulder. "What is it?" She forced a smile. "Nothing. Let's just not stay in this house tonight." But deep inside, she knew the truth. Annabelle was waiting, watching, and one day she would try again.